Alrighty everyone, welcome back. We are now getting closer day by day to the very end of June, and specifically June 30th is the release date of Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny. We know that Kathleen Kennedy and those out there like Steven Spielberg and James Mangold are really on edge about how this movie's going to perform once, we hit the first 2 weeks of July where the real numbers start to pour in, showcasing exactly what's going on with this movie. We already know that new reviews are coming in day by day now, and so far it's still not looking good. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into what's going on with Jon Favreau. Now, we know that Jon Favreau is very hard at work. This guy is working around the clock with Filoni on Ahsoka Season 1 and 2, Mando Season 4, and beyond, with a lot more shows to be announced at this year's D23 event. We also have Jon Favreau coming forward, really explaining exactly what has been going on with Lucasfilm behind closed doors, his bad experiences, and new truths related to George Lucas. Let's get right into this. Now, we know that Jon Favreau is somebody that really likes to stay in touch with the fans. He likes to keep them up to date, keeps them in the loop about what's coming out for the Star Wars franchise, what's being discussed, stuff like that. But he's also very apparent about the wrongdoings behind the scenes, specifically catered by Kathleen Kennedy. So let's go over exactly what this really entails. Now, with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni actively developing Mandalorian Season 4 as well as Ahsoka, Favreau recently was able to speak the truth yet again about Lucasfilm. He went on to deliver the following to the fans. Now, when working on Mando Season 3, he says, I think the most challenging thing for myself as a creator were the number of creative roadblocks that we kept on hitting. You see, without Lucas at the time guiding us, it was difficult to keep that spirit of Star Wars alive, and Kathy wanted her own vision. I know that Lucas originally wanted Season 3 to bring both Luke and Grogu back together, to keep them as a pair after the Book of Boba Fett, to have them hold some kind of a crossover in one of the episodes. He was insisting this upon Kathy, and she just wasn't listening to him. I know I really wanted to do it, and so did Dave, but Kathy did what she wanted to do, and she did, of course, do that with Luke and Grogu having a split at the end of the Book of Boba Fett and wanted to keep it that way. So guys, again, let me pause here. This just goes to show you that Lucas wanted so much to do with Season 3 of Mando, and he wanted to change some of the things that were done in the Book of Boba Fett. Specifically, he wanted to reverse the fact that Luke and Grogu split in the Book of Boba Fett. He wanted to bring that back together in Mando Season 3. Kathleen Kennedy did not, and that once again shows you that she really wanted nothing to do with that dynamic to return. And it was forced upon Jon and Dave by Kathy and Robert Rodriguez from Book of Boba, of course, because he was an executive producer. So what's interesting about this too is that you have a scenario where not only was George Lucas completely restricted from the set of Mando Season 3, Acolyte, and Skeleton Crew, but within Mando Season 3 itself, George was heavily insisting upon Kathleen Kennedy to really bring specific story elements alive, and she did not want to deal with that. And that just makes it more apparent that she does have a deep problem with George Lucas about what Star Wars truly stands for, what should have been done right from the get-go. A lot of people felt that Luke and Grogu deserved to stay in touch, to stay together and to keep on training, right? Because they built all that up for Season 2, Luke left with Grogu, and that was basically almost all for nothing. They just completely just made that almost meaningless at the snap of a finger. That was all Kathleen Kennedy. Moving on, he goes on to elaborate. She also didn't want George on the set to interfere. She felt that he would encourage others, like the directors that held some creative play in the show with his style, that she wanted to keep out of this season. Kathy really wanted to hold many nods to The Last Jedi in the finale. Though I know that is one thing she was very settled on and wanted to turn into a reality, we may have not agreed with that, but what can you do? I'm blessed to say, though, that we are on our own now with Season 4 and experimenting with some exciting things currently. Now, before I get to the last thing that Favreau talks about, yes, that does make a lot more sense now why the Praetorian Guards are in the finale of The Last Jedi, or should I say of Mando Season 3, that mimics The Last Jedi, and how a iconic piece is destroyed, the Darksaber is wrecked, just like the Skywalker saber was crushed and ripped apart into two. Same exact thing. We can see that Kathleen Kennedy forced elements of The Last Jedi upon the finale, and Jon Favreau is confirming that, and how George was also against that overall approach. And it's just almost like she's trying to intentionally strip down Star Wars and dividing the fandom on purpose to just drive fans away and to keep new fans that will accept her vision. That's what it's coming across as. Moving on. He goes on to conclude, George had so many ideas that he wanted to make happen in the third season alone, and it was sad to see that never came to pass. And we understand if fans felt differently from the latest installment, due to having too many creators in the room with this one, and Kathy pursuing a different vision, but right now it's all about resetting the story with Season 4, and embracing a new direction for fans to engage with. Now again, I've mentioned this several times, Mando Season 3, in my book, was a colossal failure. It really was. I mean, when you go from Mando Season 1 and 2 to Season 3, it was a hard decline. I mean, if you imagine a graph, it was like a nosedive, right down to the bottom. That's how I felt. There was no sense of story, there was no direction, it wasn't really linear, each episode didn't really make sense or contribute to the next one. Celebrity cameos were cringe by Lizzo and Jack Black. In my book, that's just how I felt, and it was really just in-your-face type of content, almost like Kathleen Kennedy wanted to really just anger fans, and she did. She made a lot of fans very upset with this season, because, well, that's just how she is. You know, we've seen what she's done with that, what she's doing now with Indy 5, the Dial of Destiny, it's no different. So, look, when we look at Favreau, he's saying, you know, that he's very blessed that he's now working on Season 4 alone with Dave Filoni, and that they are doing some very exciting things that they're experimenting with, and how it's basically resetting the franchise. They're really kind of turning the clock and just really bringing it back down to the basics, back down to the bare bones of what Season 1 was all about, and how it was true George Lucas vision and style. That's going to return, and also the simplicity is going to return, and eventually evolving into something magical. So I'm looking forward to Season 4, even though we got a ways, guys. I mean, we got a long ways to go until we finally are able to be convinced whether or not Star Wars is really back on track. And I think Ahsoka is really going to be the make or break about convincing fans. It really is going to be. Because this is 100% a Dave Filoni series. Kathleen Kennedy had zero involvement in that, so if Dave Filoni can't really prove that to fans, then you're really in trouble, Lucasfilm. I mean, then you really have some big work to do. So, look, guys, I would really love to hear what you guys have to say about Jon Favreau unveiling these things about George, Kathy, Mando 3, and more. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.